If you guys enjoy what I do, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free and easy to do. Welcome to my channel where we cover the lore of Final Fantasy XIV. We cover the stories both big and small, the epic and the cute, the silly and the tragic. I hope you all enjoy the ride, and welcome to the Chronicler of Lore. In Razad-Han, a representative has been sent by Lord Hien to get some help hunting a monster that he thinks is one of the blasphemies. His people have done well keeping the people of Doma safe for the most part, but this creature is a flyer, and it's a little difficult for shinobi and samurai to fight something that stays out of range. But since the Warrior of Light is pretty skilled at shooting things down from a distance, your help would be extremely useful. Hien's a good friend, so the Warrior of Light makes her way to the Doman Enclave to meet up with him and Yugiri, who's always with the man. They should really just get married and get it over with. The pair had expected to be sent help, but they hadn't expected it to be you. Of course, they're not going to look a gift horse in the mouth, so they get straight into explaining the situation. Right after they got word of the people in Thavnir turning into monsters, the same thing happened to a woman in Isari. The monster she became attacked a villager and flew off to who knows where. Turns out the person she killed was one of the prisoners they had gotten back in the exchange with Asahi and the Empire. The thing needs to be dealt with, but like his messenger said, it can fly, so they wanted someone who could shoot it down. As expected, that one creature isn't the only one to appear. A lot of people have changed, and the number of new blasphemies is increasing every day. That tends to happen a lot when all it takes to be changed is being afraid or depressed or hopeless, which means just wiping out the blasphemies won't solve the problem. While you're all trying to figure out what to do, a man comes running up screaming about how someone in the village turned, and even though no one got hurt, the people are panicking. That could lead to more people turning into monsters, so you all head off to deal with the creature. And unfortunately, since there's no way to cure them, that means you'll have to put it down permanently. You catch it while it's in the process of attacking a little boy, but he's not happy that you saved him, since the monster you killed was his brother. Hien tries to explain to the boy that the monster wasn't his brother anymore, but the boy calls you all murderers and runs off. Ise had been looking for the boy whose name is Tonbo since he had run off after the monster. His brother was the only family he had left since his dad had been forced into the Empire's army where he died, and their life hadn't exactly been easy before under Yotsuyu, since calling her the proper name for a female dog wouldn't be nearly a strong enough word to describe her. The brothers had spent a lot of time praying that Hien would get their family back together, or at least deal with Yotsuyu. But when she died because of her brother, and they found out their dad was gone, the boys were left with nothing. Hien understands why the boy hates him. He killed his brother, even if it was by using the Warrior of Light, and he had spared Yotsuyu, so it all looks pretty bad. But Hien, being the problem solver that he is, promises to make things better for Tonbo and the people of Doma. But doing that will take a plan, so you all head back to the Doman Enclave. After thinking about Tonbo's story, Hien realizes that even though they freed a lot of prisoners from the Empire, the people didn't really get closure since they never got to see Yotsuyu get punished. He failed his people, and he can understand why some of them hate him, but something has to be done about that before more of them turn into monsters. Some people are obviously more at risk than others, so Hien decides that the best way to figure out who's in the most danger is by going around talking to the people to see who seems to be the most distressed. People usually know their neighbors pretty well, so that's not a bad idea. While Hien does that, Yugiri and the other shinobi will hunt down the missing blasphemy. They brought you to help fight, not necessarily hunt, so the Warrior of Light gets a small break. When she checks back in with Yugiri, her people still haven't found the creature, but the good news is that no new people have transformed into monsters. Hien constantly being in the midst of his people is likely helping with that, but Yugiri thinks he may be overdoing it a bit and decides to go and check on him. Since you're there, you decide to tag along. He wasn't exactly hard to find, but his mission hasn't really been going as good as he had hoped, mainly because the people of Isari refuse to speak to him at all. He doesn't really know why they're acting like that, but he figures that the two of you might have a better chance of finding out. At least you will if Yugiri puts on a disguise, because her face is about as well known as Hien's. When you talk to some of the villagers, the problem is immediately made obvious. They don't think they got attacked by a blasphemy at all. They think it was a kami named Izanami, one that, unlike Hien, actually cares about the people. Others do understand that the thing is a monster, one that came from a young woman who prayed every day for her husband to come back, only for it to never happen. That loss made Kisai, the woman's stepmother, think that she had become a kami since she really believed in the gods. It's a little crazy to think that her daughter Minato randomly just turned into a god, but it seems like more people in Asari believe like she does than not, which is why they don't like Hien. Hien gets it, but having the people believe a blasphemy is a god is a major problem, because what do you think the people will do if someone attacks their god? The particular kami that they think it is called Izanami, which is the god of life and death. She created the nation of Doma and takes the souls of the dead to the underworld. The people see her as a symbol of hope for something better, and killing her would remove that hope, which will likely create a whole village full of blasphemies. From what Yugiri heard, this Kisai woman can actually talk to the dead, and she's about to gather the people together to prove it. It'll be a good opportunity to see just how crazy the people are, and since Hien can't go, the Warrior of Light and Yugiri go to see. Kisai is an elderly Aori woman, and while it seems crazy, it looks like she actually can channel the dead. Or she's just a really good con artist who's using her acting skills to convince the people that the blasphemy will help put the tortured souls of the people's lost family members to rest. The people, including the young boy Tombo, are all fully convinced by the woman, so the two of you go to tell Hien just how bad the situation is. He doesn't believe the woman is able to let people talk to the dead at all, but what he believes doesn't change the fact that most of the people of Asari do. The people were suffering, and he couldn't do anything about it, so they turned elsewhere, and whether they're being conned or not, Kisai's antics have kept the people from transforming. Being able to talk to lost family members would make people happy, but Kisai is justifying the blasphemy killing people, saying it will help restore order, so it seems strange that the people would be okay with that. While you're all discussing the insanity, a woman starts screaming because the blasphemy has come back. You all race off to fight it, but when you get there it's gone, and a woman is standing beside a man who the monster had killed. He was one of the prisoners who had been recovered from Garlemald. That means both of the blasphemy's victims were from that group, which means it's likely targeting them for some reason. Kisai, however, thinks differently, and shows up denying that the thing is a blasphemy, and claiming that her stepdaughter was the chosen vessel of Izanami. She says she saw it happen, and those words caused the Echo to show the Warrior of Light that very moment. Minato was upset, rightfully so, at Yotsuyu for being spared and her husband being conscripted into the Empire's army, only to die so far away that she'll never really know what happened to him. Hien couldn't even give her the small bit of closure that would come from knowing how her husband spent his final moments, and she feels worse every time she sees people come home to make their families whole. Kisai tried to convince her that Izanami would make everything better, but the woman didn't believe her, and she transformed into a blasphemy then and there and flew off. Kisai thinks Izanami took the girl's body so she could give her peace and bring it to the rest of the people, something she can't believe Hien would be against. But considering the fact that two people who had just made it back home have been killed by the thing, Hien is pretty sure it's not any kami that he would worship. He doesn't think the gods are that cruel, but Kisai thinks it's ironic that he'd talk about cruelty when he made the people watch Yotsuyu walk around free and clear after everything she had done, including sending Kisai's husband and son off to Garlemald to die. The fact that he put the well-being of the people of Doma's tormentor over them makes it hard for the people to put their faith in him. I actually agree with her. They should have executed Yotsuyu for her crimes regardless of the fact that she lost her memory, which did happen because she dropped a building on you all, and Hien's actions make it easier for Kisai to galvanize the people against him. Whether they hate him or not, he still plans on setting up the funeral for Izanami's latest victim after he finds out why you looked like you were about to throw up when Kisai started talking. He didn't know about your visions, but after you tell him what you watched happen to Kisai and Minato, he can understand why the woman went crazy. Losing her last family member in such a strange way while being extremely religious could make anyone end up with a warped sense of reality. Regardless of her mental state, Hien knows what you all have to do. He just hopes the woman won't stand in his way. Back at the Enclave, Hien has decided that since the conscripts are Izanami's targets, you all need to find them and get them someplace safe before you even start hunting the blasphemy. It doesn't take long to gather them all up, but Yugiri thinks that before you all dive into hunting the blasphemy again, you need to learn more about Kisai. She thinks the woman was born in Suino Sato, But since people from her birthplace don't really talk to her, Yugiri decided to use the Kojin to find out what she needs to. From what they told her, the people of Suino Sato weren't all that eager to talk about Kisai, which means you'll have to go there if you want to find out anything. That's not that big of a deal for you, but since she was banished, Yugiri will have to wear a disguise. If she gets caught, it could end pretty badly for both of you, but it's worth the risk, so Yugiri slips on the outfit she wore way back when you met her in A Realm Reborn and you head off. She hasn't been home in years. When she was little, she used to sneak out of Suino Sato with the other children looking for adventure and to see the fabled land of Doma, but when they got there, they saw the aftermath of the Imperial attacks. Her and the other kids ran away, but she got lost and ran into a young Hien who was training to fulfill his duty as a samurai and to protect his people. After seeing what the Empire had done, she had wanted to protect her own home too, so she started training with him. The elders of Suino Sato wouldn't listen to her about the danger the Empire posed, even though their land was underwater, so Yugiri left and became a shinobi. The story of how she met Hien was covered in a Tales from the Twilight issue that I covered on the channel, and I'll link in a card that you can click on after this video. The people of Suino Sato felt that Yugiri's actions would lead war to their doorstep, so they banished her. She doesn't blame them, and even knowing the consequences, she wouldn't change anything. She's happy to see her home again, but just ignoring the wishes of the Ruby Princess wouldn't be good for her family, so she'll just pretend to be a shinobi that works for you. With that in mind, you head down to see if the elders know anything about Kisai, like why she left Suino Sato in the first place. Turns out the woman had been a priestess who had been banished after getting on the bad side of the Ruby Princess of the time. She'd had a friend whose name was Unagi who knows the details of the whole little incident, but the problem is Unagi is Yugiri's mother, so Yugiri lets you do the talking because her parents would likely recognize her voice. Kisai had been born to a family of priests, and she was very gifted. The people expected a lot of her, but things changed after she said she could talk to the dead. At first the people didn't believe her, but she seemed to know things that she shouldn't have, which led to her getting summoned to a private audience with the Ruby Princess. No one knows what went on behind closed doors, but whatever she said made the princess so mad that she immediately had Kisai exiled. Some people think that Kisai either got caught in a lie or revealed something secret that she wasn't supposed to know. It was likely the former, because the stuff she claimed came from the dead wasn't always true. The girl could have just been a really good liar, but even back then people found some peace from her words. That's all Unagi can tell you since she hasn't seen the woman since she was kicked out of the city. Her mom clearly sees through Yugiri's disguise, but she decides to play along and tells this quote random shinobi to deliver a message to their daughter letting her know that they're both proud of her. Before anyone else recognizes her, the two of you leave the underwater nation. Yugiri felt pretty good after seeing that her parents are both okay, and she does hope to see them again one day without having to wear a disguise, but she has a duty to help Hien take care of Doma before she can worry about changing the laws of her homeland. While she doesn't think Hien will end up turning into a blasphemy, his job is pretty depressing, especially since the people aren't exactly happy with him. And it's not like he has any family of his own to lean on, but there's no rest for the people in charge, so you head off to let the man know what you found out about Kisai. Hearing about her past puts things in perspective for him, but it doesn't stop what needs to be done, especially when it comes to dealing with the blasphemy. Hien's talked to the Confederacy to get them to help set up watches all throughout Doma to help track down the thing, and it doesn't take long for it to get spotted near the coast. It hasn't killed anyone yet, so the Warrior of Light, Hien, and Yugiri head out to Ankoro to find out exactly where the monster is. Rasho of the Confederacy, after seeing Hien showed up in person to talk about this thing, is starting to get convinced that these blasphemies are pretty serious. His people saw it out near Shoal Rock, and it seems calm for now, which makes it seem like the thing really is only going after the Imperial conscripts. Since it's not moving much, right now is the best opportunity to kill it. So not wanting to miss this chance, you all head off to deal with it. The creature is right where they said it would be, but as soon as it sees you all, it takes off too fast for you to even get a shot off. Hien had thought since Minato had hated him in life, the blasphemy would attack him instead of running away, but apparently that wasn't the case. Apparently this is the first time that Tansui heard that Minato was the blasphemy, and that news catches him off guard since he knew the woman. Her family had tried to escape Hingashi when it was occupied by the Imperials, but their ship got sunk. Tansui and some other Confederacy members had found her in the wreckage with her dead parents, so they brought her to Ankoro and took care of her. She had clearly been through some things, because even seeing a weapon would make her start screaming. That made her a bad fit for their organization, so they brought her to Asari and found some people to take her in. A few months later, Tansui saw her on the beach with an Aori fisherman, and he knew that she'd be okay. He saw her on the beach a lot after that, so apparently she liked it, which would explain why the blasphemy came there. They keep some memories even after they transform, which could also explain why it ran away instead of fighting. Seeing Hien with his sword in hand probably freaked the monster out. That at least means that the conscripts being under heavy guard should keep them from getting attacked, but it does make it a tad difficult to fight the thing since it just runs away. Tansui would rather not fight it at all since the woman's life kinda sucked, but since it has to be done, he'll make sure that his people keep looking for it. While they look, Yu, Hien, and Yugiri head back to the Enclave. Unfortunately, before you can make any plans, Kisai shows up with a large group of people from Isari. They have a request. Kisai wants Hien to give her the conscripts so Izanami can kill them, which is pretty insane. Hien rightfully tells her no. I probably would have had her filled with arrows along with all of her followers because those types of people are way too dangerous and insane to leave alive. Hien is a bit more tactful than that, and he tries to explain that you can't just kill people all willy-nilly. It's supposed to be done as a last resort. Kisai tries to bring up how Hien wrongfully spared Yotsuyu again, but he counters saying that when you all had attacked Doma Castle, he tried to kill her. Technically, she should have died, but she didn't, which had to be the will of the kami, especially since she came back with no memory. Because of that, Hien couldn't execute the woman for crimes that the new her technically didn't commit, but he understands why the people would be mad at him for that. But regardless of how they feel, he won't sacrifice people whose only crime was being enslaved by the Empire. He makes the choice even more difficult for them when he tells them that if they believe the kami want those people dead, then they need to swing the sword themselves. Once they couldn't pawn their duty off onto something else, the people decide they don't want blood on their hands, but Kisai claims it's what the souls of the dead want. However, Gosetsu shows up sporting a freshly shaved head to challenge the woman. He had heard about the woman who could talk to the dead on his travels, and he figured he'd come back to see for himself. He ran into someone else from the village who wanted to make the trip too, but they couldn't, so they sent a letter for Gosetsu to bring with him. It's for the fisherman Akitsu, and it comes from his father. He was injured in battle, so he's been having a hard time getting home, but he's fine and very much alive, which means Kisai couldn't have been talking to him, so the woman who claims she can talk to the dead was full of more crap than a gas station bathroom. Instead of admitting that she's wrong, she says that her daughter will make you all pay before she storms off. Not really knowing what else to do, the people from Isari follow her. For the moment, Hien's not worried about them, he's just happy that Gosetsu's back. Not only that, he solved the Kisai problem with a single letter. Gosetsu had heard that things were rough in Doma, and he figured that he could be useful, so he came back. He made the trip a little bit quicker after he ran into one of the so-called spirits that Kisai had talked to and found that he was very much not dead. The enormous man has had quite an adventure since he's been gone, and he starts telling Hien all about it, but he stopped when Tombo comes back and apologizes to Hien for how he had acted. He's just scared because if his brother could turn into a monster when he was older and braver than he is, then what chance does he have? He couldn't even perform the funeral rites for his dad, which makes it all that much worse. He doesn't blame Hien for that anymore, but whether he blames him or not, that doesn't make the situation any less hopeless, and exposing Kisai's lies took away even the small hope she was giving to the people. Which means Hien needs to do something to replace the hope that he took from them, and he wants Gosetsu's help with that, which the man is happy to give. They get to work planning immediately, and they manage to come up with something that they think will work. Gosetsu figures that since so many people are grieving for loved ones that they can't bury, there should be a national funeral rite held at the Swallow's Compass, where everyone who decides to show up can bring a personal item from the deceased that can be sealed away there. Spirits live inside of all things, and even in death a part of you remains in your most cherished possessions. Sealing those away in the royal mausoleum should help the lost souls of Doma find their way home. They've already announced the event, and a lot of people have already started looking for their offerings. Hien thinks it'll help if he learns a bit about the lost relatives, because it might help people to talk about the good parts of the deceased. He wants you to come with him since one of the Warrior of Light's many titles is the Liberator of Doma, and the people would probably be happy to have you there. In the meantime, Gosetsu has his own somewhat secret task to deal with, and although Hien's curious, he's not gonna pry. Another part of Hien's job is to bring the offerings to the temple, so after talking to the people and getting everything from a katana and a paintbrush to a very large jar of sake, the two of you get ready to head back, but first Hien wants to talk for a bit. He's realized that he's done a lot to ensure Doma's future, but he never took time to deal with the very troubled past. Without handling that, even if more people don't turn into monsters, they still won't be able to move forward. You can never be who you want to be if you're always looking over your shoulder at what could have been, and Hien's guilty of the same thing, and Gosetsu knew it. He claims to have heard the two of you talking, but knowing him, he was probably following Hien. Since he's been looking after the man since he was just a boy, he knows that from the moment his dad died, he's never had a moment to mourn. He had to become a leader, and that is more than a full-time job. But Gosetsu thinks that he should take part in the funeral rites and put his own demons to rest too. That's a good idea and Hien agrees, but he wants to know why Gosetsu is wearing a sword again. The man can't exactly use it after he was shot, had a building fall on him, then got washed out to sea. He claims it's for peeling persimmons and heads off, but Hien knows that the man is training to help fight the blasphemy. It's a terrible idea in his condition, but the old man is pretty stubborn. Worrying about Gosetsu is just another way for Hien to avoid thinking about his father, but he can remember the day he died like it was yesterday. They had just taken Doma Castle, but they saw the banners of the 13th Legion heading toward them with Zenos at the head. Hien and Gosetsu had only just escaped when he heard that Zenos had killed his father. He saw Gosetsu break down and cry over the loss of his friend and leader, and Hien immediately felt the weight of his new position. It was hard to deal with, but he couldn't let anyone see him break down because they needed a leader. Because of that, he managed to get everyone out of there, and since then he hadn't had a chance to get over his father's death. But now he will, and to do that he needs to get his own keepsake for the funeral, which will take a bit of flying since it's hidden on a mountain. There was a tree up at Plum Springs that Hien's parents would bring him to when he was little, because it was a peaceful place that let him forget his worries for a while. That's where he hid something his father had given him, a small doll of Kishin Dashang, the monkey auspice, the one that Hien had tried to find so he could get his help getting rid of the Garleans. He buried it there when he hit adulthood as a part of his farewell to his mother. He thinks the toy would put a smile on his dad's face if he could see it again, which is what makes it a perfect offering, so the two of you head back to get ready for the ceremony, and of course there's still the blasphemy to deal with. Once the preparations are completed, you all get ready to head to the ceremony minus Gosetsu since he hurt himself during his training. All of the people of Isari show up to participate, and surprisingly enough, even Kisai shows up and apologizes for what she did. She had wanted to believe that her daughter hadn't become a monster, so she made some very bad choices, and she begs for forgiveness, as well as the chance to leave offerings for her lost loved ones. Hien agrees because he's genuinely a good man, but Kisai is not a good person, and she takes the opportunity to try and stab him. She clearly forgot that Yugiri was there, and the shinobi cuts her down before she can hurt Hien. That turns out to have been her plan all along, because her death causes Izanami to fly in and attack. The thing is strong and angry, which makes it way more difficult to deal with. The three of you aren't strong enough to bring it down, but when it gets ready to kill Hien, Gosetsu joins the fight, but not as a samurai. Apparently he's learned a new job on his pilgrimage and sports a staff, some talismans, and some very cool healing magics. Since your team now has a healer, you manage to bring down the blasphemy and finally let Minato rest in peace. Despite what she did, Hien will still give Kisai a proper burial and will put her family's belongings in the tomb with everyone else's. With the trouble dealt with, the funeral is allowed to take place. The people of Isari are finally able to grieve so they can move forward and guide Doma into a prosperous future. But that's Hien's job. Gosetsu once again heads off to master the job that will eventually become one of our healing jobs, while the Warrior of Light heads back to Razat Han to report that her mission was a success. This concludes the story of Endwalker's Range DPS questline. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe, ding that notification bell, and if you really want to show your support, you can donate to the channel through the link in the description. Until next time guys, later.